History isn't just uncovered. It's negotiated, restricted, and sometimes buried all over again, as our cameras descend into dust-filled trenches and sealed vaults. One question sharpens the silence. What discoveries were never meant to see daylight? Archaeology isn't only about finding objects. It's about confronting what they mean. And when ancient ruins challenge origin stories, borders, or belief systems, the ground itself becomes political. The past gets filtered through authority, funding, and fear, leaving behind an official record that seems complete. But the absences remain invisible to anyone taught not to look for them. Ancient legends whisper about discoveries that unsettled ruler cities swallowed by the sea, monuments built by unknown hands, and maps that remembered coastlines. For centuries, these stories were dismissed as myths. But now, archaeology is brushing against their edges, uncovering submerged ruins, anomalous tools, and architectural precision that defies our accepted timelines. Yet, when these finds emerge, they're often isolated, reinterpreted, or just delayed. Why? Because acknowledging lost civilizations implies forgotten knowledge, shared origins, and cycles of collapse. These are ideas that weaken modern claims of uniqueness and progress. And so, evidence is fragmented, context is removed, and curiosity is redirected before the questions grow too loud. Ancient maps and forbidden texts are at the heart of many of these. They connect physical discoveries to recorded memory. When tablets describe global floods or manuscripts outline migrations after a climate catastrophe, archaeology becomes confirmation, not just speculation. This convergence alarms institutions built on stable, predictable narratives. So, documents are classified, translations are questioned, and access is restricted. Artifacts are locked away for further study that never seems to conclude. Climate evidence only intensifies this tension. Ice cores and sediment layers are aligning with destruction layers at ancient sites worldwide, reinforcing stories that history prefers to keep soft, gradual, and safely distant. These aren't just isolated scandals. They form a pattern. It reveals a system that edits the past to stabilize the present. As modern tools like satellite imaging and LiDAR reconnect these fragments across sites and disciplines, the outline of what was hidden grows clearer. We see lost civilizations responding to climate stress, knowledge transferred and then forgotten, and maps recording worlds before disaster. If archaeology keeps uncovering what history tried to bury, the question isn't just what was covered up. It is, how long can that suppression last before the ground itself starts telling the story without asking for permission? Have you ever wondered what secrets lie buried beneath our feet? It's not just about treasure chests or lost temples. As excavations dig deeper into deserts, jungles, and even the seabed, a strange pattern is emerging. We're finding cities built on top of older cities, fortifications on even more ancient ruins, and tools that are dated far earlier than the cultures we thought invented them. When these discoveries surface, they're often brushed aside as anomalies, oddities that don't fit the official timeline. Why? Because admitting this continuity would shatter the neat story of human history we've been told. The truth is far more unsettling. Archaeology reveals that many civilizations didn't start from scratch. They inherited knowledge from predecessors who were wiped out by catastrophe, war, or climate collapse. This refusal to acknowledge our inherited past isn't just an accident. It's a way to protect the simplified timelines that support modern identities and power structures. The biggest clues appear where the silence is loudest, with monumental structures but no written history to explain them. When archaeologists suggest these societies were highly organized or had long-distance contact, they face immediate resistance. Peer reviews get stalled, funding disappears, and their ideas are labeled as fringe theories. Think about the ancient legends of teachers arriving after a great disaster. Suddenly, they don't sound so metaphorical, do they? But mainstream institutions prefer to keep each discovery isolated, preventing us from seeing the bigger picture. A forgotten global network of knowledge that humanity once shared. Ancient maps constantly resurface, showing coastlines that are now underwater and continents shaped differently. These maps are often dismissed as symbolic because acknowledging them means someone witnessed dramatic climate change firsthand. Modern technology is making it harder to hide the truth. LiDAR scans are uncovering vast cities hidden beneath the Amazon rainforest, and sonar is revealing structures off ancient shores. But the interpretation of this data is tightly controlled. Discoveries are announced piece by piece, stripped of their deeper meaning. It's designed to make you feel wonder, but not to ask too many questions. Why? Why? Because admitting that advanced societies collapsed before, or that climate has repeatedly rewritten human history, undermines today's narratives of permanence and control. Ultimately, these archaeological cover-ups aren't about hiding objects. They're about managing meaning. They are about deciding which version of the past is safe for us to inherit. As more independent researchers connect the dots, a new picture is forming, one of synchronized collapses, shared technologies, and recurring patterns. The ground is yielding inconvenient truths, forcing us to ask a critical question. Will we continue to edit our own history? Or will we finally learn the lessons buried beneath centuries of deliberate silence? When we dig into the deepest layers of the past, archaeology stops feeling like a dusty academic subject and starts to feel urgent. As modern technology rebuilds ancient environments, the past lines up uncomfortably with our present. Discoveries once dismissed now look like forecasts, showing civilizations collapsing under sudden climate shifts, resource shortages, and political denial. We're now realizing that many of these discoveries were buried, not just to deceive people, but to avoid panic, to dodge accountability, and to escape the hard work of adaptation. Acknowledging that past societies were fragile threatens the systems we've built on confidence, endless growth, and the comforting idea that history has no more hard lessons to teach us. Our education system often reflects this suppression. When discoveries are watered down, students learn a false sense of certainty instead of caution. Ancient collapses are taught as distant curiosities, not as repeating patterns of systemic failure. Archaeology without its real implications becomes a spectacle, not a lesson. But new reconstructions are filling in the gaps, showing us cities abandoned long before any conqueror arrived. Walls built to keep out starvation, not enemies, and massive migrations driven by a changing climate, not just ambition. This reframes our heroic narratives, revealing that survival, not glory, has always shaped history. Ignoring environmental limits, time and time again, led to collapse, a dangerously relevant lesson for our own society, convinced of its technological immunity. As these implications become clearer, political resistance grows. Admitting that great civilizations have repeatedly collapsed undermines modern authority. National borders and economic models, all built on the idea of permanence. Access to archaeological sites is still controlled. Data is often delayed, and interpretations are filtered. Yet, the sheer volume of evidence is becoming undeniable. Satellites can't be persuaded, and geology doesn't negotiate. As rising seas expose submerged ruins and shifting sands reveal forgotten roads, the planet itself is becoming an archive that can't be censored. It forces us to compare ancient warnings with our present path, showing that suppression only delayed recognition. It couldn't prevent the consequences once the conditions repeated. The most unsettling realization is this: the covered-up discoveries weren't just isolated embarrassments. They were pieces of a coherent story humanity chose not to hear, because it demanded humility, cooperation, and restraint. Archaeology now shows that civilizations fell not just from ignorance, but from refusing to act on uncomfortable knowledge. And this pattern continues today, as we acknowledge the data but avoid meaningful action. As technology resurrects what was buried, it challenges us to decide: will discovery finally change our behavior, or will it just add another layer of documentation to a cycle we refuse to break? Archaeology doesn't predict doom, it records consequences. The discoveries being unearthed now are mirrors, not mysteries, reflecting choices made long ago. If we continue to treat the past as something to manage rather than learn from, the future will excavate us the same way, piecing together the fragments of a civilization that saw the warnings, found the evidence, and still chose to bury the lesson. Thanks for watching. If this made you think, consider subscribing for more deep dives into what our past can teach us.